Okay, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. I'm Brady. This should be a short and quick meeting. It looks like we have one main agenda item, and Jack, if you'd like to introduce yourself, we can go ahead and jump into that.
Great. Yep. Thanks, Brady. I'm Jack Francis. I'm coming to you from Sig-Cluster Lifecycle primarily. I work on Cluster API and CAPZ in particular for Microsoft. And I've been working with the various cloud provider communities tracking the KEP that will set. I'm not sure the scope of the KEP is not going to completely remove. It's called phase 4. All right. So for folks who are unaware, the emergence of out-of-tree cloud providers and the deprecation of in-tree providers is almost like a decades-long effort. So it's been amazing to finally see this make progress. And we're at the point now where upstream Kubernetes is going to be disabling the feature flag that allows in-tree, which is something that was introduced a bunch of releases ago. It's going to default that it's going to default it to true, which is a disable in-tree provider. So essentially, a vanilla Kubernetes cluster that is created with 128 will not permit in-tree cloud provider by default. Does anyone have any, I know we're just a few folks, but do we have any questions about what I mean by in-tree versus out-of-tree? Is that clear?
I'm not super familiar if you have a brief overview, but I also don't want to derail, so.
No, it's okay. I can definitely be brief. So essentially, original Kubernetes, some of the main clouds, Google, Azure, Amazon, and some others, integrated providers for infra directly into the upstream Kubernetes code base. So it's in the actual KK. If you look at the source tree, you'll see it in there. Which meant that the positives, the release cadence for those was integrated with Kubernetes, and so as development went forward in time, cloud providers sort of went forward in time at the same rate. And then eventually, as you can imagine, the divergence in sort of feature velocity from core Kubernetes and then the actual cloud providers themselves made that tight coupling not ideal. And so now all of the main cloud providers are in their own projects and they release according to their own release cadence. So, there's no such thing, at least going forward, as like a GKE, Google GCP cloud provider that is 127 specific, like tightly coupled to 127. There's some like plus minus version support, but essentially the out-of-tree independent cloud provider projects now have their own release cadence and version requirements and all that kind of thing. And so that's now becoming the requirement. With this PR, you will have to explicitly feature gate enable in-tree provider to use the legacy code. And one of the outcomes of this effort is that the in-tree code bases for all the cloud providers that are there do have legacy code. So over time, that code has become less and less frequently patched, certainly for features, but also for bug fixes and all that kind of thing. So it's not code that folks should be using. So I'll paste a PR link in chat. DIMS's cap that is going to do that disable by default. So that background being said, strictly speaking, because the in-tree cloud provider is still a quote unquote supported feature, it's still possible for users who explicitly opt out of that feature flag when they create their Kubernetes cluster or when they configure their components, they will use the in-tree cloud provider. And we don't have any end-to-end test signal for that once that PR merges. So the open question is, what is the plan? I don't think we have a plan, so we're going to come up with one, I think. So from the Azure side, it's fairly trivial for the CAPZ team. CAPZ is the Azure provider for Cluster API. It's fairly easy for us to produce a test infra job that would create an Azure specific cluster using the in-tree. We've been doing it all up until this, very recently, till that PR. So we can just insert that configuration back into CAPZ and create a test infra job I think we can do that at fairly minimal cost. We can talk about the periodicity of that job, or maybe make it just a pre-submit for running against like particular changes to the entry, but at least we'll have some kind of coverage. So the question really is, how sufficient is that to cover the full end-to-end scenario? Does that make sense? Well, everything I'm saying. We can also not do the Azure store. We can do something else. But I think that's something I can confidently propose, and we can do that at least as a first step. Up until this point, if you like are integrating a Kubernetes PR, you'll notice that if you do like a test question mark or whatever /test question mark, you'll have access to literally dozens of different end-to-end scenarios, and those are all now running out of tree. So we can't practically like fork all those scenarios and make entry equivalents. But I think having zero test coverage is probably not great. So where do we practically sort of want to aspire toward in terms of supporting this feature flag scenario for the next several releases? Cool. I don't either. My best idea is I kind of know how to do this. I can just do it for CapZ, and we can see how that goes for the next release cycle. I'll definitely check back with the folks who pay for these clusters, but I don't think that it'll be too much spend. So I think it should be pretty non-controversial.
Yeah, I was gonna pretty much agree with Michelle. It makes sense, but as far as moving forward, it does seem like a bit more complex of an answer to who would make the decision, I guess. You could probably reach out on Slack to Dims or Benjamin, or those would probably be the best, I guess. And they may have more concrete opinions on which way you should go, though.
Yeah, for sure. So I know them a little bit. So I thought best be to just show up here and get this, on recorded video. And if anybody has any chat, I mean, that's so adorable. Thank you for that. Yeah, and then I'll just let them know that I presented the sort of background and a possible CapZ solution and see what they think. And if I am continuing to be involved in this, I'll pop my head back in here and let folks know what's going on.
Yeah, thank you for the overview. This is great. We have any questions? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that was a good explanation, but like I said, it's an interesting question of how coverage should work going forward.
Yeah, there's probably some stuff that doesn't have any coverage, but I don't want to go on record as proposing that. It's copying that whatever model there is out there for that. I'm going to say, let's do better. I'll offer CapZ as a carrot. We'll see.
Okay. That is the only agenda item we have today. Unless Vladimir has anything, then I think we can start wrapping it up. It's nice to see you. Okay, everyone. I think that was a nice short meeting. You can have the rest of your lunchtime back. I hope everyone has a nice afternoon.
Yeah. Thanks, folks. Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.